Hey, it's Kellen.
Tyson here.
And of course, AO.
And on today's episode, we're going to give the game on branding. Why branding and what is branding?
This is Diversified Game.
A podcast giving entrepreneurial advice from a diverse and inclusive perspective with Kellen.
He may agree, he may oppose, and it's more than just race. It's about, ideas.
Tyson.
When you're going against the odds, you've got to be creative, you've got to innovate, you've got to stand out.
And AL.
Focus more on execution and application and less on excuses.
So, let the game begin.
We'll give the game then, Ty. Let's jump into it.
Let's
This
jump
is not
into
a short
it.
combo.
Okay, so a brand. A lot of people talk about my brand this, my brand that, my brand. And a brand is something that I believe takes time to develop, right? So if you are stepping out and you're already talking about that doesn't fit my brand, but you haven't posted anything, you haven't sold anything, and people don't even know your brand exists, what you have right now is a thought about what you want your brand to be, which is okay to have. You have to have a vision. You have to have an ideal customer that you're serving. But oftentimes what we find is when you ask people about their brand, they don't even know what customer they're serving yet. So how are you going to say you have a brand? Okay. Your brand has to have a voice and it has to speak to a particular segmentation. And so without that, you don't have a brand. You're just kind of being an asshole. Plain and simple. So let me ask you guys, what are your thoughts on branding, why branding is important, and people that are a little bit pretentious about what their quote unquote brand is?
I think it's two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
Like on one hand, you have, folks that may have heard the term and kind of just like to seem a certain way to certain people when certain conversations take place. So, my brand this, my brand that. When it's really all of those points that you previously addressed, and like the brand is really non-existent. Whereas, there's this reality versus expectation or reality versus perception thing going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But like branding in and of itself is everything because there's just a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of people that are doing a lot of the same thing. And in this noisy world of look at me, this is me, I am me,
Mm-hmm.
the brand is the identity of, and like you said, the brand is the identity, the voice, the personality of said product, that thing, if it's a person, that sort of thing.
Okay. Whenever I don't hear Kellen right away, I know that's like that Jaws moment where the music like and then he comes up out of the water and snaps his ship in half, and you're like, oh man, we just floating now. We just floating now. Get your legs out the water.
Well, no, I always have to pray and breathe because this topic is such a sensitive one to me because we hear so many people talk about my brand, like they're the only ones doing something. Or they're the only ones in this category, or that they're their leader in their brand. And I promise you, 9 out of 10 times you are not. And so when you say you're a brand, it comes off as this egotistical, self-centered in my own world. And I figure my brand is the be-all. It's the treasure at the end of the rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all those things you guys said is true. And it takes time to build. But if you were to tell these same people who talk about their brand, they don't have a brand Bible or know what it is.
Right.
They could, sometimes they could barely spell brand. And they're just so quick to hear something that they heard someone on TV say, or, you know, they watched one YouTube video of Seth Godin or whoever, and they're like, oh, yeah, my brand and my brand. In this world, everybody is a speck of sand. You're really not that important. And if you're fortunate to have a brand that matters, you then probably have a team, or you're looking for a team to expand that brand, to tell you about your brand, because that takes research. And you haven't done, personally as an entrepreneur, I know you haven't done research on your brand. I don't mean just, oh, I went through Google Analytics and, you know, they told me this, because Google doesn't tell you everything. Right. You haven't done any outside research. You wouldn't know what a case study or a white paper looked like. If I threw it at you for $1 million, you'd say, what's that? Huh? That's your brand. And that's the money you're leaving on the table. So my thing when people start getting into this, recently, and you guys know this, I recently let someone go because they were talking about their brand like they were going to be, the voice of a whole continent. Get out of here. Your brand's not that serious. You got 15 minutes of fame and it's gone to your head. You feel me? You have one brand. We've seen many. You know what I mean? I don't need a stunt, but, with age, you get numbers with anything. If you're single at 20, maybe you don't have that many boyfriend, girlfriends, but at 40, you probably got some miles on you, whatnot. And, you might not be able to wear the white dress. So, and when you're talking about your brand and you're in the virgin stage of wearing the white dress, and it's like, and I know you guys have had that same situation with people, and it's usually women who have this issue because they get caught up in this, my brand and perception of success.
And caring a lot about what, and not saying that men don't care about what other people think, but what I will say I've noticed is that women tend to be particular about how they want society to perceive them because of certain stigmas that come around, femininity or, their cycles or anything like that. So they do tend to be sensitive in particular about their brand. But it's like, if you're going to be that particular, then you should probably, like you would go to a gynecologist to get checked, you should probably let the experts let you know what's going on. like, and in that case, if you're going to be particular, if you're going to be worried about how it's going to be perceived and looked and taken care of, then put it in the hands of someone who is an expert, right? In that case,
who has seen many brands come and go. Just like record labels have seen many artists come and go. You think you're on top now, but you're not. And we know it's not just women. So, anybody who's got funny about that, it's not, because I just shared with the guys 2 days ago, a guy, I think his name was like the Lux King, who cares way too much about his brand, that he has every implant and surgery possible, and he has way too much money in Dubai, and he's, he put Kim Kardashian to shame in every single way, and, ruined my lunch when I was eating, but
and still ain't get his legs done. No.
yeah. He's got, he has stuff to do. So it's not just a woman thing. There are some men who are particular and like that, but we've seen majority women. And it's one thing if your brand, if you were Harpo or OWN, if your pocket can allow
which again
to be arrogant,
took years to establish, literally decades to establish. So let's put some perspective on that. You just referenced a brand that literally she was at the bottom of the barrel and had to build her way up to that. So in the beginning, Oprah did not have a brand. She was Oprah. Okay. Yeah. Like just putting that in perspective real quick.
Yeah, yes. So it's just you got to, in business, stay humble, stay kind. There's influencers who get on a platform and then feel like they're even too big for that platform and they should be, other places, whether it's, you're too big for a network, you're too big for YouTube, you're too big for Facebook, Instagram, even though that's where you're finding the success. And whenever you feel like that, you're really too big for your britches, and you need to humble yourself, and you need to have people around you who will tell you that's not how this thing goes. You're just getting into this, whatever the company is. And I've dealt with it even, internally at home. Like, hey, check this out. Your idea and concept is great. Don't trip too much off the little things. I know if the church told you and then said, hey, we're taking up collection, you'll hear it then. But because the pastor right here is telling you, don't get caught up on the little things. Do the work and your brand will expand. But folks got to get off that, because you just can't feel like you have some type of ego. Any type of ego really does not allow you to have any humility, which does not allow you to better yourself, because you're caught up in your own thing. We all know what we know, and what you know is great, but you don't know your brand inside and out. There's people who've come in to my personal space and told me, hey, this could be better, you could do this and this, and I hear them. I can't always afford them, or I don't always take that step, but I'm like, whoa, that person, it really saw my, and I never used the word brand, and said, oh, we could be doing X, Y, and Z. And a lot of that information, you could get it for free at the SBA or PTAC or whatnot, but there's some real consultants who can help you. So that's my little take on that, why I was being quiet, because it's frustrating, because you're going to see a lot of great ideas die right there with saying my brand.
Right. And I don't know, for some people that want to get super specific on definitions and things like that, I do want to go ahead and let everyone know that branding is defined as a distinctive wording or design used to identify a particular brand. So, we think of distinctive design, we think of Starbucks, we think of McDonald's, the Golden Arches, we think of Apple, the bite taken out of it, which that apple has evolved, right? Those arches have evolved, right? Starbucks even went through a slight rebrand of their mermaid in the middle, right? And so when you look at brands evolve, brands change. You don't always have to stay the same thing that you were, when you can, broaden your horizon, right? McDonald's came out with McCafe. It was a burger joint, and somehow we're now ordering fraps and frappes from McDonald's. So realize that when you're sitting there and you box yourself into a quote unquote brand, you're not doing yourself a favor by constantly holding on to what you started with. Sometimes you got to give up the good to go for the great. And sometimes you've got to evolve your good to make it great. They may look like the same thing. They may taste like the same thing. They may smell like the same thing, but I can assure you they are not the same thing. So stop pigeonholing and boxing yourself in by saying my brand, my brand, my brand, and open your mind up and go, how do I incorporate this into my brand? If that is a direction that is what my consumer is asking me to go into, if that is a direction that seems to be following me wherever I go. I may not be, big into, wave riding, right? I may not be, cliff diving. I may not be big into cliff diving. But if for some reason my content starts to speak heavily to cliff divers, okay, for some reason I get this influx of cliff divers, I don't go, well, that's not my brand, and I'm not going to work with a company that, sells stuff that pertains to cliff divers. I'm not going to do that because that's not my brand. That's not my brand. That's not my brand. Then you're missing an opportunity. And I'm not saying sell yourself out, but if you got into this to serve a customer and to help people and to do something, those people are obviously coming to you because they feel like there's something you're offering up that can help them. Okay. So don't be selfish. Don't box yourself in. Let it out, let it a little free, and listen. Because if you can't incorporate things that seem so off the wall into your brand, then maybe you really don't understand your brand. I know fitness people out there right now that could probably incorporate McDonald's into their brand if they wanted to. They would be like, all right, let me look at this from a macros perspective. Like, what can I count here? Let me look at this from it's better to fuel yourself with something than with nothing. Let me look at the perspective of what you can eat at McDonald's, but let me show you how to do it in a healthy way possible at McDonald's. There's an angle for everything. But if you just hear McDonald's and go, oh, that's not healthy, then you're not helping the person who you're trying to convert from only eating McDonald's, right? And I'll use
Tyson,
go ahead.
Not to cut you at all.
Go ahead.
But I gotta take a time out because everything you said is true. But AL and I, we really gotta pray for you because you're really trying to justify this fast food, man. In a major way. And I feel you. I feel you that you could say that these apples are healthy at McDonald's, or the hash browns aren't as bad. Put it in a burger, but we're gonna get you on this purple carrot.
You're funny. You're so funny because I do love. I'm not even gonna front. I will not front nor flex. I do love a Big Mac. Okay, all right. I do love a Big Mac. That sauce is boss. I don't know, but anyways, this isn't about McDonald's.
Hey, did you hear it? Did you hear it though? Yeah. I mean, it was in the movie. He meant everywhere. I can show you how to do it healthy.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So, but inside of that, what my overarching point wasn't even just looking at the perspective of it is, I'll take Jesus, and whether you're religious or not, I'm sure you've heard the story. Jesus didn't make people come to where he was comfortable, right? He went to where they were to deliver his message. So if someone is, say in the desert wasteland of Big Macs, right? And you want to help them get out of that and say, listen, the Big Mac's not the healthiest thing you could get on this menu, but since you like going here, let's try this. Let's do this. Let's do that. You go to where they're at and wean them, or you do something in that manner to show them, hey, listen, this is where your brand is at. This is where I can actually show you how I roll in with that to get you to now slightly move over, cross over into the point where maybe now that person's like, oh no, man, I found that, but I found out that I can make the same thing at home, right? I don't have to go to McDonald's and get the salad and the croutons and all of that. And I could just go to the store, chop up some stuff. And, I do like the McDonald's dressing, so I do stop by there to grab a packet of it or something like that. You know what I mean? There's a way to meet people where they're at from a branding perspective and be able to still tell the story of your brand through an unlikely source is what I'm saying, what I'm getting at.
Make your mama's burger. Mama's burger better than McDonald's. Right?
That makes me think of Eddie. No, that makes me think of Eddie Murphy. We got McDonald's. We got McDonald's. That burger.
That's funny.
You got the onion hanging out of it. My mom make the patty, got the onion hanging out of it.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh man, but that's, we look at brands and we look at branding and we look at people, and I often just think branding is just a great way of telling a story. And Kellen sent over a great video by Casey Neistat the other day. Okay, and for those of you who don't know who he is, he's a big time and one of the godfathers of YouTubing and social media in that regard. And he said Burger King got him. Burger King got him by liking, some tweets from back in the day, 2010, 2009 tweets, because they were on a campaign to bring back their, the funnel cake fries. And so they did that. They did that to a bunch of influencers, because that's when they first rolled out with them and they're bringing them back. So they went to a bunch of influencers, people that they know pay attention to their social media like hawks. And because they understand the mentality of the social media culture, it's that joke of, why are you liking a picture from 15 weeks ago? Well, imagine someone liking a picture from 8 years ago. How, like, that person who's really into their social media analytics and things like that, they're going to be like, hold on, Burger King is liking photos from 8 years ago. Oh, I got to find out what this is about. And they use the psychology. And Casey is a health nut. He said it in the video. Like, he's like, I don't, I wouldn't go to Burger King. I wouldn't do this. Like, that's not my thing. But well played, Burger King, to pretty much out you to my audience indirectly by saying, Burger King, what's up with liking my tweets from 2000 whatever? And now Burger King goes, oh, because we're doing this. And now they're injecting themselves into a conversation with someone who technically, by all intents and purposes, wouldn't have been a brand or wouldn't have been a person that their brand would have aligned with. And the brilliant thing that I think he did in the video is what I tell a lot of people about their brand is that forced Casey to now be creative because he felt used. Though he was like, that was genius, he felt used, that the fact that Burger King, kind of used them as a part of their marketing campaign. But he was like, whoever thought of that was a genius. But he then went on to say, I don't eat Burger King, but now I'm thinking, like, how do we make this right? Let's figure out a way that we can give back to the community in some way. Whereas before, he would have never even thought to go to Burger King. He was like, nah, I don't eat fast food. I don't do this. I don't do that. And now the conversation's opened up where now, because they used him, he's like, well, I already got used. Well, let me figure out how I incorporate this into my brand and make it beneficial. And if he and others like him only took that mindset with more brands and more scenarios and cognitive thinking, or had a team around them that was creative enough to say, hey, listen, Burger King just did this thing, but instead of flying off the handlebars at Burger King, let's talk to them about creating some type of healthy campaign. Let's talk to them about sponsoring, youth obesity, something to do with youth obesity, something to do with fitness. Let's talk to them about, giving back to world hunger. Let's have those talks, because those align with your brand, those align with your ideology. And it's okay that it comes from an unlikely source, as you just got to make the source meet your brand in the middle. And that, my friends, is smart branding. That's knowing your brand, and that's knowing how to be one hell of a storyteller. And if you really want to expand your business, you really want to open it up, start thinking outside the box. And if you don't know how to think outside the box, find someone who can think outside the box and add them to your team and be like, hey, listen, I'm going to take your cues on this. You explain to me how this can fit in with my brand. How can we make this work? And listen.
That's what I'm talking about, Ty. The doors of the church are now open.
And I'll be passing around the collection plate. Amen. But yeah, it's wild to me to just think of that. And it was so timely when you sent that video, Cal, because I was writing up my slides for like the branding presentation. And when you sent that, I was like, see that right there? He would have never thought to do that. He would have never thought to get involved with them. They forced his hand. You were either going to get down or lay down. Like,
real talk.
That was it. So that was genius. And then I know I'm going a little long here, and I don't know if anyone wants to interject or say something, but I do have something else that I want to tap into real quick. But now I did want to just reference this real quick. Branding and read this. So branding, by definition, is a marketing practice in which a company creates a name, symbol, or design that is easily identifiable and belonging to the company. This helps to identify a product and distinguish it from other brands and services. Branding is important because not only is it what makes a memorable impression on a consumer, but it allows your customers and clients to know what to expect from your company. It is a way of distinguishing yourself from the competitors and clarifying what it is you offer that makes you the better choice. Your brand is built to be a true representation of who you are as a business and how you wish to be perceived. So that's very important because that taps into building interest, that taps into recognition, and that taps into qualitative trust. Okay. And so when you are talking about your brand, if you're going to take anything away from anything, it should be the fact that you need to focus on, can I be consistent? Is there going to be, a qualitative trust, meaning they'll know what to expect from me time and time again as far as quality goes, and just staying and keeping consistent with that. And other things can fit under that umbrella as long as you tweak them to fit under that umbrella, right? So that's why branding is super important. Okay. Gives the consumer what to expect and builds your recognition so that they know who they're expecting it from.
Agree. I think that's a good place to pause and let everybody marinate on branding.
So I think this is a good place to stop our dialogue for this episode and allow you, the listeners, to join the conversation and keep the dialogue going with us online.
You can do so by visiting our social media at Facebook, Diversified Game Podcast, on Instagram and Twitter, Game Diversified, online, diversifiedgame.com. In your life with the people around you, and/or join our Patreon and get some nice perks for being involved.
If you found a nugget and or liked today's episode, you might as well leave a review. And if you leave a review, you might as well share it. If you share it, you might as well subscribe. And as always, thanks for your support.
Thanks for getting in the game and listening to the Diversified Game Podcast with Kellen, Tyson, and AL. The #1 show pairing entrepreneurship with diverse and inclusive perspectives like wine and cheese, bagel and lox, fish and grits. Be sure to visit diversifiedgame.com for all the good stuff. Join in the conversation and discover more content.